Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here, DuffinMedia. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the place, the home, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Help your best, most true, authentic voice. Get what you need, improve your results, make billions of dollars, meet the person of your dreams. We're not guaranteeing the last two yet, but we're working really feverishly to make sure that we get all that done. And love the fact that you keep listening to us anywhere where you get your podcasts and watching us on YouTube. And I'm guessing the reason you keep doing that is because we keep bringing people here that can walk the walk, talk the talk, as you may. Today is no exception, and I'm really excited about this. We get to have a public speaker, an author, a playwright, someone who has 20 years of chops in the radio field and is a messaging maven, Lorraine Ranalli. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. And you know how serious a person I am, which is why I brought my friend with me.
Please introduce your friend.
No, I will not, because if you do not know who this is, then you're not old enough to be watching this podcast. Just kidding. Marvin the Martian, courtesy of Warner Brothers.
Is a hero. And
he is a hero.
This tells you how regal we are in terms of the seriousness of the topic. So we got all kinds of fun stuff to cover, and that's really the main intention. Look, folks, you may already, if you're from the Philadelphia area, then there's a great chance you know Lorraine already. And thankfully, also, for those that are listening, watching us outside the Philadelphia region, even more fun, because we get to open another couple of windows in regards to Philadelphia. Philadelphia, that I am born and raised in Philadelphia. So I get the chance to open the doors to a couple of other neighborhoods. And so, Lorraine, right away, I would say, so Lorraine is a Philadelphia native, a South Philly native as well. If you're from Philadelphia, you'll get the question, what part of South Philly are you from?
Okay, so I was born in South Philadelphia at Methodist Hospital, but when I was born, my parents had already moved out. And so I grew up in Delaware County, just outside in Darby Township. And, but weekends were spent going to the Italian market because we had to get the cheese here, the sausage there, the fruit and produce there. It was like the stops, sometime in the early 70s, my mother, who drove, and we did only have one car. That's why we did this South Philly thing on the weekend. I was kind of dragged along. And of course, there was always relatives there to visit and whatnot. And the bakeries, you just couldn't get them, and you still can't. It's a shame. That's another whole topic. Just the bakery business is going. I mean, God bless the big box stores, but they don't do it the same. You know what I mean? Anyway, I digress. When it comes to food, that's just an easy digression. But sometime my mother, figured out, she found a local butcher. She found, all the local comparative shops and stayed in Delco. But it took her 10 plus years to get out of the habit of driving back home, to get.
I see what you did. I love the sense of driving back home. And so right away, that, like I said, that even though 10 plus years, and it's still referred to as, oh no, that's home. So it's
wait a minute. Did we say home or home?
Home.
Because we said home. Okay. Just making sure. I got to keep it real,
folks. It's one of my all-time favorite things. So I find, for me, so Delaware County, or Delco, if you are anyone who lives in the region. I'm channeling a friend of mine, actually several, as I'm beginning this conversation. So, folks, because if you're aware of Philadelphia, then you know it's a series of neighborhoods. And by the way, the suburbs are extensions of those neighborhoods.
Yes.
So knowing full well that the suburbs, at least for me, were not avenues out. They just made the city of Philadelphia, I don't know, bigger.
Larger.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
all. Simply
And
larger.
the neighborhoods basically when I don't know how true it is for young adults today, but certainly was true in our generation and generations before us, is
Yeah.
you identified your neighborhood by the parish. So if you want to,
What was
you were
it? Humor
asked
me. What was the parish?
the parish for me in Delco
Yeah.
was Our Lady of Fatima.
There you go. So,
Okay.
folks, I do that all the time because it's funny how I get continually and routinely drawn back home. So
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And by the way, I just said home and caught myself in terms of, oh my God, I sound so affected with home. The accents, the regionalism, all of that stuff to me has been so powerful. Now, Lorraine, the first time I encountered Lorraine was on the radio in Philadelphia. So I don't hear much as it regards to the Philadelphia side. Like even for people that are natives, simply because of the fact Philadelphia radio, maybe it's everywhere, but in Philadelphia too, while the personalities were so unique, and you were on some big time stations. I mean, for God's sake, you know what I mean, covering cable
Up and
W.
down the dial.
Yeah.
You've made it when your father says to you, and part of me, I'm sure this is a family show, but when, only family can be so honest. I come home one day and my father says, "You're like horse crap. You're everywhere." I'm like, "Oh, thank you. That's just so sweet, Dad." He
That's when
grew
you know
up
you made it.
yeah, he grew up at a time when, that was the case, I guess. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're on every station." I'm like, "Well, I work for Shadow Traffic." And
Right.
so there you go, right?
So you got
And
everybody. What was it like? How did you get break into the business? You're a Cabrini College grad, if I
Mhm.
right. So how did you break into the business, which is wildly competitive? And so what got you to the other side?
Well, it was a dream since childhood to be
Yeah.
on the radio.
Mhm.
And so the real dream, if
Yeah,
you want to know the truth,
I do.
the real dream started. I wanted to sing and dance on Broadway. I wanted to be a star, but I had several issues, but the biggest issue was I can't carry a tune if my life depends upon it. So,
Fair
and
for the
speaking of
singer.
family that you have to embrace and love, they let me know under no uncertain circumstances that I couldn't carry a tune.
Oh my God.
So, um,
I
so
guess that's for the best. So
it is.
meanwhile, it's right after. I don't know what your therapy bills have been to get rid of that, but so you realize maybe it's not singing, but still there's an avenue. So what?
I loved music and I was, I was a record collector from a young
Right.
age. I started DJing at age
Mhm.
16 and at about 14 I said, well, because I used to listen to my little transistor radio before the boom boxes came out. I carried a transistor radio everywhere, always had batteries. And at night, the AM radio, and
Yeah.
any radio geeks listening, watching, whatever, you'll appreciate this.
Mhm.
I would lay in bed, 11 o'clock midnight, which was really late for a little kid. And I would start to slowly tune the dial on my transistor because I was picking up
Better
New York
signals.
stations. I was picking up, because AM, for those that don't understand, amplitude modulation, the sound bounces off the
Mhm.
clouds in the atmosphere and comes back down. So you can pick up other cities. It's
Mhm.
cool. I mean, I was just
Especially at night.
mesmerized. Yes, late night especially, and a lot of the daytime stations shut down. So there's more room in the atmosphere or whatnot. So I knew at 14, I said, well, darn it, there's not a lot of female DJs. So if I can't sing
Right.
the music, I'll play the music,
Right.
and I read the back of all the album covers and all the liner notes and tried to really know the craft. Fast forward to when I finally did get into radio. So you
Mhm.
mentioned college. The best advice I never took came from an adjunct professor at college. He was an engineer, an actual radio engineer,
Right.
and Frank Hogan, shout out to Frank. He's awesome. He was
Mm.
at Glassboro State University
Mm.
College.
Now Rowan. Yep, exactly
Rowan,
right.
yes, thank you. So aging myself again. But he was a part-time teacher at Cabrini.
Right.
He got us all our first FCC cards and broke us in. Just was more real. He was the only non-textbook
Mhm.
teacher I had, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry, Dr. Craigie and Dr. Gerard. But anyway, um I'm just going to name drop. What the hell?
Deeply
And
apologize. Stopped her right. Stopped her track deeply.
but
Um,
but Frank said to me one time, he said, we were sitting out, just kibitzing outside of class,
right.
and he was asking everybody what they wanted to do. And he says, Ranalli, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a disc jockey. Now, mind you, I was a very shy kid through high school and even into college. It took me years to get over the shyness. And I said, I want to be a disc jockey. And he said, what the hell are you doing here? Go hang out in Ballackinwood. And I was like, oh, I can't, I got to get my degree, because all
Right.
I heard growing up is get the piece of paper or get the piece of paper. Like my dad didn't care what we were doing. He didn't, help. I mean, it was a different time. Not that he wouldn't have, or he just couldn't. And, you just were on your own, get the degree. So I got the degree. I worked in retail full time. I was spinning records in a bar at night, whatever I had to do to pay for this damn degree.
Mhm.
Only to have Frank tell me, "What do you don't need a degree, just go hang around the radio stations," But I didn't have the guts to do that. And so I got the degree. But I'm glad I got the degree, because at Cabrini at the time, they didn't recognize communications as a full-time degree. Now you can literally get a degree in basket weaving, which, another conversation, the whole college thing. We'll maybe
Oh, and by
have
the
me
way,
on
that was
another
running
time.
through my head about another,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, another conversation.
Hmm.
But at the time, it was
Hmm.
a massive deal. Not only that, but the specialization would be like the communications degree was critical. That
Hmm.
that's how people got in. At least that was the perception,
Well,
not the
and
actual reality, but it was the perception.
it really wasn't what got you into radio. Your demo tape is what got you
God,
into
yep,
radio. But you
yep.
needed to make a demo tape. And I don't know where to make a demo tape, but I was on the college campus radio
Mhm.
station, and so my degree was in English and communications.
Got it.
They
Yep,
they
right.
didn't have just a straight at the time, just a
Mhm.
straight. They don't have one anymore either, because they're no longer in business. But that's another
Yeah.
story.
Oh yeah.
Cabrini closed.
Oh yeah.
But so that was fortunate, actually, because the other route would have been a straight on journalist degree, which I probably should have. I didn't want to get into news, okay,
Mhm.
but I did get into news. I ended up being a decent writer. You'll do anything to get on air because you've got to make that tape, right? So
Yes.
my first few jobs were reading the news, was, rip, rewrite, and read. And
Yeah.
then when I finally got a chance to disc jockey, well, it happened at a small station, but then to move on, I had to do the news thing, and I did the news thing some more, and I did the news thing some more, and then I get to shadow traffic, and I make it to Philadelphia. I'm on, KYW and 1210 and Magic, and oh my gosh, what was 98 at the time? It was
Oh well, it's
post
not
hot.
a WCAU, and then before it went
It
to
was
WOGL.
Yeah, it was WCAU before OGL, but it was after the hot hits phenomenon,
Right, right.
And
Oh,
oh, I
all
can't.
right,
Maybe it
folks, you
went
don't
from.
know if you're outside of Philadelphia,
I
but
know. Sorry,
you
this
were
is
on
inside
it. Oh
baseball.
well, from there. Oh my God, do I?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So you did what you had to do, but then by
Yeah.
the time I got a chance to disc jockey, it was so pre-programmed.
Oh yeah.
And I won't say where I was. I hopped around a few stations, but my main gig was, then I had so much fun doing the news because it was infotainment. Now you're talking late 80s, 90s. It was, gone were the days of, Walter Cronkite, unfortunately, because look what news has become today. It's sad that they call themselves journalists. It's all
Say
opinion
I don't
pieces.
even know if you could call it infotainment
Mm-mm.
right now.
No, no,
Just
that was the big
just
term in the late
tainment.
80s.
I think
Yeah,
it's just tainment. I don't even
just
know that
tainment.
there's any sort of real information that's being conveyed.
Oh,
But
and
it's
and from any outlet,
any.
yeah, and I try to tell people this, especially the
Mhm.
older folks. I think the young people get it. They don't tune in. They don't care.
Right.
They get their news on Twitter, Instagram,
Oh yeah.
TikTok, whatever. And I said Twitter, okay, X, whatever. But yeah, so it's amazing how the whole landscape has changed. I still love it. Radio will always be my first love, and I would go back in a heartbeat. And here's the crux. People say, "Why'd you get out?" Well, I had to eat and pay a mortgage, and you just
Yeah.
don't all make Howard Stern salary,
Most
even in the
don't.
big city. No, most don't. So, but man, I never had a job that I loved as much. And I was at Shadow for 18 years. I was in radio for almost 30 altogether. And so, one way, shape, or form or another, even getting back into the podcast and trying to do that like a radio show. I met some fun people. We all, was there competitiveness? Was there a dog eat dog mentality? For me, I didn't pay too much attention to that. I wasn't in there to compete with the next. People were. It's life, it's humanity, it's in every business, but not as, look, we just had a blast. I'm just thinking I can't even repeat some of the stuff. When I got out in 2006, when I left full time,
Right.
at that point I was single mom with four little ones, and the 3 a.m. wake up call was killing me because it was great that I was able to find help, early in the morning as I left the house, and then, but I was home by 10 a.m. and the kids were in school, and I could be the lunch mom and I could get them after school, but it wears you out. Like, I could not do that at this age. You got to be young and stupid to be able the sleepless nights, just unbelievable.
Lorraine,
And when
how
they
long did you do that? Like just the 3 a.m. parts. How long did you do that?
Oh boy. When I went back full time after I had my youngest in 98, I want to say 99 through 2006 is 7 years.
So when you just said it wears you out, so that's a
Yeah.
7 year stretch of that. And so
Yeah.
look, we've got like television, radio people that get, that do it for decades.
Hmm.
I can't even process just in terms of the wearing down part. I can't even process it. So, what is life like when you are going to bed at 3 a.m.? I mean, or getting up at 3 a.m. I'm sorry. You're obviously not going to bed at 3 a.m. When you have to get up and you've got a family, what was that like? I mean, it's wearing you down. And as you said, the nice part, you're home for lunch and all that stuff is great. But as a mom, what is that like?
Well, it's as you were asking the question, all I could think of is my kids and their therapy bill, because all they know is that's
Right?
not mom, that's the lady that screams constantly, and I feel horrible about that. But that's what life became, because I gotta sleep, I gotta get some sleep, and it got to the point where my older ones were in their teen years, and I was just like, whatever, just don't go out of the house. I'm going to bed. Good night. It's 9 o'clock. I gotta get some shut eye. I'm
Have
not
to,
even gonna get
have to.
6 good hours.
Right.
I remember one time somebody, because I did a lot of volunteering at their school and whatnot, and
Mm.
somebody called me about something we were doing, and it was 11 o'clock at night. I ripped this lady a new one. What are you doing? Like, woke me up in the middle of a dead sleep. And I looked at the clock like, you panic first of all because it's so late, and I was so many years removed from that staying up late thing, and to most people, 11 o'clock's not late, right? The news just getting on or whatever. And I ripped into her, how dare you call me at this hour? And she had no idea. And I feel so bad. I can't even remember the
Don't
woman's name,
know.
but if you're out there, I apologize.
But
Sleep
Lorraine,
deprivation will make you a crazy person.
I believe it. That's why I'm like, in terms of, look, our whole show, the whole point is about being authentic. And that was your best pass at authenticity. One of the things that I'm learning as I get older is that the things that are wearing you down, that's why I ask, because the things and I'll speak for me, that wear me down, it's often not manifested in a specific singular situation. Like the
Yeah.
person, like I'm speaking to you now, and this is great, and blah, blah, blah. I remember going through, like when I was going through some situation in the past, it's not the direct communication, it's all the other ones. Like, so
Yeah.
where they don't know. You know what I mean? I
It's
get just think about,
so
no,
true.
I'm fine with you, but if I happen to walk into a Dunkin' Donuts and start freaking out at them, that, you know what I mean? That they have no clue that you were getting up at 3
No.
in the morning or that you had a bad day. And it's one of the things and so the question, rather than my own neuroses, is this, which is, so how did you adjust yourself so that you weren't all of a sudden screaming constantly at the kids? And I know you're exaggerating, like I'm the mom that
No, I'm not. But this is all about authenticity.
even better
Look,
than I great.
it took me a lot of years. I
Yeah.
was a late bloomer. Look, you might be a little clued. I'm not the most mature person in some regards.
I'm gonna
Okay.
say you're not to get in the best of ways. In the best of ways.
But so it took me, I mean, here I am in the business of communication.
Right.
And it was honestly, age 40 was a turning point for me. It was an epiphany on so many levels. I mean,
What do you think?
well, faith, just coming back full force into the faith,
Mhm.
and that's another whole story. But let's stay with the career for a minute.
Yeah, and then I want to
And
go to that next because I'm very
and
always curious about that.
and then really turning my communication art and science into something that I wasn't just preaching and practice. I was practicing
Right.
and learning and becoming more self-aware and
Mhm.
becoming more, oh my gosh, like get out of your own head. Nobody knows
Mhm.
what you've been through, and you don't know
Mhm.
what anybody else has been through in a given day.
Right.
So you have to be kinder. But it takes time.
Mhm.
We grow up, and here's something for anybody outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The East Coast, I'm learning, gets a bad rap. We really do. I mean, some of it's deserved. I mean, how many times have you heard, oh yeah, the city that threw
Well,
snowballs at
the
Santa?
snowballs at Santa Claus. Yeah, and
And
that's
and can I just
thick too.
clarify? I wasn't old enough to have seen it or whatever. I think that happened in the 60s, but I my husband told me this. He said the guy that played Santa, the reason they did that is they were pissed at him because he came out drunk as a skunk on the field, and
All
that's why they
true.
were saying, "Go away,
Right. It's all true.
you're
I'm
making
right there with
Santa
you.
look bad." But that's not what, it's fake news
You,
that
oh
gets
no,
across the country. Yeah.
you've got sports analysts in 2024
Oh
still
no. They're
dragging
still
that
talking about that.
of the 60s. So first off, I'm always a believer. Well, do your homework, number one, for God's sake. If that's the best research you could come up with.
Hmm.
But then the other is, as I said, it's the sound bites of everything.
Yeah,
So
it
I know
is. We live in a
one
soundbite
tiny
society.
thing. So now I'm going to now formulate an entire opinion. So you're
Yeah.
thinking now, it's like, no, I've got to be more, I've got to draw on different dynamics. I'm now, as you said, 40 is a turning point.
40 was a turning point. That was a lot of years ago, but it was the beginning of a turning point that took
But
another
okay.
decade.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
probably took almost a decade. And I bring up the
Mhm.
background is because we all are products of our own frame of reference, right?
Sure.
So you grow up and I can't even say I grew up in a tough neighborhood as compared
Mhm.
to some, but maybe in the scheme of,
Mhm.
the United States of America,
Right.
and this is just coming to light lately because of recent discoveries and interactions and whatnot. Maybe if there was a scale, then I'd be on the tougher side of the scale because you have to hold your own. And just, to use the Santa Claus snowball thing as an
Yeah.
analogy, and that shows you the grit of the people of Philadelphia. We're not going to tolerate a drunken Santa who's going to, make Santa Claus look bad for the young kids. We're going to fight him, right?
We're
That's
going to
the
fight for
attitude.
the right
We're
reasons.
for the right reasons, for the
Right.
for the greater good,
But
right?
what if
That's
that,
no, seriously, I mean,
no,
that's
I
who we
believe
are as
you.
a people,
Right. Um,
Yeah.
I love that, and I love that reminder. For like I said, from a guy like me who has lived only in the Philadelphia area like all my life. So I love that, that
And John, might I remind you that it goes further back than the 60s. It goes
oh,
back a few hundred years to the founders. All
oh,
right. Where
yeah.
did these tough guys, they weren't tough guys, but maybe they were. I guess they
Mhm.
were, right? They sacrificed their life and everything, their sacred
Tough
honor
enough. Uh,
for the sake of building a new country and,
tougher
and
than
getting rid
me.
of the tyranny, right?
Oh, right.
So I'm proud of that, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm proud to be a part of that and to have lived that. And I don't know that I exemplify it well, but um, so just again for our friends viewing, listening in other parts of the country or
Right.
world, I would just ask that you understand Philadelphia a little
Mhm.
better and those of us from it. Now, as far as the rest of the East Coast, I don't know. I can't say.
Oh, I've visited. But I think one of the nice things is, like you said, that it's you brought up, and it's not the first time I've heard it. It's not the first time I said it, but every time it resonates for me still, which is everybody's going through something all the time, and that's
Yeah, it's
everybody
true.
and
It's
zero
true.
So you're now realizing back then, and you said that's a lot of years ago, close enough, but it's like, okay, I need to be doing something different, whether it was just a mental survival of I need to get food on the table based upon
Right.
the pay grade for most people in the field
Yeah.
or the fatigue or
Yeah.
whatever it was. So you're doing it. Folks, we've got here a two-time author, amongst other things, and two books that that I'm now big fans of. A very fun book for me and a very on point book that's also fun. And so
Oh,
I look, it's one of the things. So, what got you into the mindset
okay.
going
I'll
to
give
write
you
a
the
book?
quick transition.
Yeah,
Prior to giving up radio full time, which was
right.
something I prayed about, it was such a
Mhm,
very difficult decision because I loved it. I mean, those 4 hours of morning drive, it was pure adrenaline. It was
mhm,
just amazing.
mhm.
And I'd skate in, after breaking every traffic law on City Line Avenue to
Sure,
get there by 5 a.m. Oh, whatever.
but here I am.
Um, and then it was like kick out a newscast, write it up, get it on, brought your 5 a.m. on my first newscast. Then I got a traffic report 2 minutes after that, and
Yep.
another one after that, then another newscast for another station. So it was like boom, 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 boom. You just learned how to move. You
Mhm,
didn't overthink anything. You got the headlines, you rewrote the story, bam.
mhm.
You learn to digest things and spit them out fast. So and I got pretty apt at that. But to make up the difference in the paycheck, I was doing a lot of freelance and
Mhm.
I was doing a lot of PR for people. I understood media relations from
Right.
the media, from the receptive angle. Now I was helping companies on the other end, get the media's attention. Okay. So I did a little bit of that. That bled into a lot of ghostwriting, a lot of ghostwriting.
Nice.
And at
Okay.
some point I said, I want to write my own book.
Mhm.
And I thought it'll be a great tell all about radio. And then I said, oh gosh, no, I can't do that. I will blacklist myself. I had
Okay.
at least the maturity to realize that. So it was Christmas Eve 2005. I'm feverishly, cooking in the kitchen. I used to host Christmas
Ah.
Eve, big open house, right? And I enjoyed that, but I was always tense. Ask my kids again, they will tell you. They have different memories than I did. They had fun. I watched them, but
Lorraine,
all
I
they
thought
remember.
cooking relaxed you. No?
You've not been in my kitchen.
Okay.
So I had a very cool layout. My house was a multi-split level, and so I would very carefully set up food around the house. So people come in. I had the kids, 4 children. You take the coats. You do this. You get them drinks. Da 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 da. I had to do the last minute fish frying, right? And what did people
I
do? Where do people want to gather, no matter what you have laid out in the house? Where do they all want to go?
kitchen.
In the kitchen. Where does Lorraine not want people when she's cooking? In the kitchen. And I remember getting so like tense inside that I literally had heart palpitations and my chest hurt. And this is 2005. I'm not even 40 years old.
Right.
And I said, okay, this is a little bit crazy.
Mhm.
And that's when I realized this is humorous because I find the humor in most things. If I've learned nothing else in 58 years, I've learned to not take myself or anything else too seriously. I
Gotcha.
do take things seriously and I do get very upset. I do get very emotionally involved, whether
Mhm.
it's work and people and relationships. And it's an effort to step back and say, wait a minute, you know what? Find the humor in life.
Mhm.
And so at that time I did, and I said, you know what? This is a flippin' joke. I have my book right here. The heck with the radio tell all. I'm going to write a book about the Italian culture. Actually, I'm going to write a cookbook because I'm a damn good cook, and everybody in my family is a good cook. But wait, I got to tell you the honesty of it as I started it, and I have a friend who started a very successful publishing company, a Catholic publishing company, and he looked at the first draft and he basically tossed it back and said, "You can do better." And I said,
Really?
"Thank you for."
What? Wait a minute. How did you respond? I heard you just say, oh, I said thank you. But what was that like to have it bounced back to you? Um,
I knew that he knew success and he knew how to reach it. And I said, you know what? You got to be tough skin. If he didn't like it, he's got good reason. Go back to the drawing board. I
Have
wasn't
you
upset
always
about that. I was really appreciative.
have you always
Um,
been teachable?
no,
So,
I am in certain areas, I think within reason. I think I always have been in certain areas. There's some areas, I mean, I'm thinking as a kid, was I teachable and coachable on the softball field? Probably not. And I
oh,
stunk as a softball player, but
I can't
but
even
when it
comment on
came,
my own prowess or lack thereof. Thank God you were in this instance.
oh, and then the same
Really?
with radio. I had very early in my career, my first one of my first program directors,
Right.
my first big gig, if
Mhm.
you will, in a very small station,
Yeah,
making, minimum wage as the news director.
sure.
I had a program director who wasn't much older than me, but he was an army brat from Canada who had
Right.
traveled the country
Mhm.
and or the whole North America actually. And he was really good at distinguishing accents. And he said, "We're going to get rid of your accent."
I I don't know why
And
I'm excited to hear this part. I'm not sure
thank
you had to get rid of it.
And thank God for Ian Alexander. I'm going to shout out to him because I wasn't offended. I kind of found it humorous. And I said,
Right.
"Oh, yeah, what's my accent?" He said, "Well, we're going to stop saying yeah." And I
Yeah.
said, "Okay." And he said, "You don't have a Philadelphia accent. You have a Delaware
Yep.
County accent." That's
Yep.
how
Yeah.
much he could distinguish. He was just
Wow.
so good. So
Mhm.
Ian Alexander is a voiceover artist and he's
Right.
phenomenal.
Okay.
And I
Great.
don't know if he's still working or if he's retired, but look him up if you
Oh,
need
well,
available.
I will
Sorry.
be. Great.
He's Ian's great. Ian's great. And God bless him, he took the time to coach. I'm telling you, he was only a few years older than me, but he acted like he was my big boss. And he was
Mhm.
my big boss because I was fresh out of college and all green-eyed and everything.
Yep.
And but he had me practice how now, brown cow, how now, brown. And I would, get off the morning shift and, he did the afternoon. So we had that midday and he would work with me. He was really good. I digress. You asked about coachability. I will tell you, I am coachable.
Mhm.
There are some times when I hold my ground because
Mhm.
I have an opinion. I'm
Yeah.
opinionated. So I'm being honest.
Mhm.
In the time and back to Gravy Wars. So when my friend said you can do better,
Yeah.
I I was actually I wasn't offended. I was a little bit overwhelmed by knowing that this is going to take work, but then I knew because I had done enough ghostwriting that
Mhm.
this is what writing is. Writing is a process and it is hard work.
Mhm.
But to anybody who's ever thought about writing a book, and I tell people this all the time because I get asked all the time,
Sure.
writing a book is as difficult as delivering a baby, if not harder. And it is your baby, and you're
Mhm.
literally trying to
Yeah.
push it out, right? It's
Right.
sorry, but
Right.
there's the labor pains and whatnot.
Mhm.
But the bigger and harder part about releasing a book, whether Simon and Schuster's doing it for you, or you're
Mhm.
self-publishing, or anybody in
Mhm.
between, a small press like I had,
Yeah.
you're doing all the promotion
Mhm.
and the sales do not come instantly. It
No.
is work.
Mhm.
And Gravy Wars came out in 2009. It's 15 years later, and I am still unloading it. And I've had people say to me, "You're still pushing that?" Well, hell yeah, it doesn't have a shelf life. Oh, darn, you can't see because I got
Oh, wait.
my
Can I?
fake background. You can, thank you.
Hold on a second. I'm going to bounce it right to the screen. There you go.
Well,
I
you
need
know
your name
what?
up. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Wait.
What?
No, I was trying to make sure that I got the whole title in
You,
here.
you got the whole. So it's just Gravy Wars, South Philly
Really
Foods,
important to me
Feuds,
to get
and
all of that in.
Attitudes.
There you go.
Yeah, and you have to spell attitudes with a Y. It's not a
Addy with a
typo.
Y.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it was, I feel as if this book is timeless. The reason, oh my God, and you changed the screen for me. Folks, if you're listening to the podcast, you just don't know the delight that I'm seeing in now looking at
The big
Italian
tomato.
food. Oh my God, but an Italian tomato, which is all the difference. They're
It's a Jersey tomato.
they're right. That Jersey tomato. But it's look, why I love this is I kept coming back to that one point before we continue, which is because everyone wants to write a book. Everyone's
Yeah.
intending to write a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me too, right? And for those that have actually written books, and my sister Maureen is a published author, and it's like, and so I bring it up because you often, I'm imagining, get besieged by people that want your opinion on a book.
I
I
do. I had people literally without even asking, just send me their
send you the
manuscripts,
book.
read this, read this. And for some I did, but it became like another job. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't have time. So I blogged about it and I gave all the advice that I've given. You can find in you can email me. I can send you links to where I've published this on LinkedIn, and I'm in the process of updating my own website, and I'll have
Right.
all those old blogs. But
Mm.
I want to help people because a lot of people have helped me, and that's just the name of the game. That's what you do, right? Who was it that was it? Zig Ziglar, I think, said
Oh,
if
yeah.
you'll get anything you want out of life if you help as many people as you can get what they want out of life. And so I've always lived by that. I do try to do that.
But your
And like I said,
resilience is what speaks to me. And I think that's a big deal because so often those that intend and want to help and what do you think get
yeah,
pushed back. You didn't. So you've got the book.
yeah,
Folks, it's an absolute blast of a read.
it's
If
just a
you
fun
are
read.
Philadelphia, if you are Delco, so I don't
But
call
you don't have to be from Philadelphia or
you
Italian to appreciate it.
no.
And usually it's the non-Italians that love it the most. I get pushback when people say, "Oh, when I first put it out, did you sell this at the Italian market?" They don't want it
Oh,
because in their minds they can do it better.
right.
That's the whole crux of the book. Who does it the best?
You know
That's
what's
the
crazy to
war.
me, Lorraine, about this was it's the generosity of not just how many recipes. Do you know what my first, and again, I apologize because I'm a non-cook. Here was my first observation. So
Mhm.
I don't have the patience to cook, and I assume it's going to be like making Thanksgiving dinner.
Mm-mm.
And I see the very first, it's your mom's recipe. And that was like the launch point was who's better? It was on the radio. Whose
Mhm.
was better of the gravy? If you're from Philly and you happen to be Italian, then gravy happens to be the term for the red stuff that you put on pasta. It's
Depending on what neighborhood in
sauce.
Philly.
It's oh yeah, or marinade or whatever. So I'm
Yeah.
Irish and all that stuff. So I never knew any of this. What I loved about it was the generosity part that I was saying. You have a ton of different recipes and perspectives, and I mean a ton.
Yeah.
It's a really fun read, and it's one of the rare books that I picked up as a non-cook. That number one was just funny to me in general, based upon the cultures, the neighborhoods, uh, the Italian traditions, and the cliches. But
Yeah.
really, it was one of the very first times I'm like, I might actually be able to do that. Uh,
Oh, sure you
well,
can.
oh, I'm not saying as well, but what I'm saying is,
Oh,
like, never in my life did I think I want to make something, but I really love,
John, when you go into the kitchen,
right?
you have to channel the painter Bob Ross. There's no accidents. It's all it's no mistakes, happy accidents, right? Really. And that's what you have to do.
Oh my
Okay, so
God, I love that.
this didn't turn out the way I imagined. We're going to call it something different.
Oh my God, I love that in the
Yeah.
slow motion scenes. So, did it give you, when it's done, and as you said, 15 years later, I'm still moving to sell it's well, good because classics they don't have shelf
Oh,
lives. But what I would ask you is, what was it like when it was done? How did it feel to get it done? Literally, it's done. Here
it's
it is. Ta-da! The feel
it's
like
exciting, and what
it.
was exciting too is the opportunity then to go out and promote it, and then
Right. That's yeah.
oh my gosh, I thank all of the people I've ever worked with in radio and TV who helped me promote
Oh,
it because I got a ton of press. I have binders of clippings
yep.
and stuff, and it was just a blast. What Gravy Awards ended up being was a launch pad for me. It was, and I tell people this. I was just telling somebody over the weekend, your book is a loss leader. J.K. Rowling got lucky.
Wait a minute.
Stephen King will
Give me
tell
the
you
expression again. A book is a, say it again for me.
a loss leader.
Oh my
A
God.
loss leader in terms of the sweat equity,
Yeah,
unless you're one of the few like a J.K. Rowling,
right.
but even Stephen King, he queried, hundreds of publishers before
Mhm.
he finally got his first book published. That's the way it goes. And you're not making a million off your first book.
Right.
Um, and then, but what it did for me is what got me out in the speaker circuit, like big
Mhm.
time. And that was nerve-wracking for me, because I was fine talking to hundreds of thousands of people, on the radio in my little phone booth studio with a microphone and nothing but my computer in front of me,
Seeing
right?
none of them.
So
Walk me
what's
through and seeing none of them. Now walk me through the experience of now they have faces and facial reactions and there's a scene.
mhm.
What was that like for you when you first started?
um Well, so I first started going out in the speaker circuit before the book came out. Really, it was around 2006. I was asked to do something, and I had to, and I'd spoken in public a little bit, but nothing really big.
Hmm.
And every time I would get really nervous. And in fact, when I was a kid, one of the things this is horrible, but I got to admit, one of the things, two things I did to get over my shyness and
Yeah.
prepare for a
Mhm.
life of broadcasting, which is what I wanted.
Right.
I took my first well, it wasn't like my first job, but an early job at 16. I got a job of all the fast food joints. I chose Roy Rogers because they had a microphone.
Oh my
And
God.
so you had to say into the mic, double cheeseburger, roast beef,
Like,
order large fries,
oh my God.
that
Right.
took a lot out of me.
It
Um,
was.
but then I also used to volunteer to lecture at mass.
Mhm.
And I remember one day, and I would only do like the weekend, the chapel masses, not the big church. Although I may
Want
have
to go to
once
the
or
B
twice.
stage?
But I would be so nervous. Like you would see, like I remember having a necklace on a sweater and the necklace was moving. And I said, oh my gosh, what do I do now? But that's the type of thing I did. Then I started DJing. And then, like I said,
Yeah.
2006, I was asked to speak. So I did a little research. And I put together a speech. I mean, I had speech classes in college and whatnot, but I really wanted to do more of this, and I enjoyed it because I knew there was going to be life outside of radio. And
Mhm.
before I quit radio, I took a Dale Carnegie high impact presentation course.
Yep.
Love Dale Carnegie.
Right.
You know, just can't say enough about that
Mhm.
whole program. His book, How to Win Friends, Influence People, is a must read for everyone.
Mhm.
Business,
Yeah.
not business, it's always called a self-help book.
Mhm.
Okay, whatever label you want to, it's a great book on communication. In fact, when I taught interpersonal communication at Delaware County Community College, I ditched the textbook they recommended because it wasn't business oriented. It had its own agenda. And I recommended this. Plus, the kids weren't reading the textbook. Why am I going to make them buy a $70 textbook? Go get How to Win Friends, Influence People,
Right.
$10 at any bookstore, order it on Amazon,
Mhm.
whatever. And this is what we're going to read. But you're going to read it because you're going to get quizzed on it. And they did. And
Right.
we did a lot of the exercises that, well, it didn't have exercise. I based exercises off the book really to help train people. I'm kind of going all over the place,
No,
but
but you're
the
bringing this
leap,
to life, and this is
it
why it
it
matters.
all comes together. So
Right.
so I was already involved in teaching public speaking,
Right.
creating courses,
Right.
bettering myself. It took
Mhm.
a long time. I had some flops. I talk about them in my book Impact.
Yep.
We'll change screens for that
By the
too.
way, folks, if you're watching this, I need you to stay with this screen for a moment, Lorraine, because
Oh, go back. Oh, I didn't go into this, right?
boom, that's it. So you're doing what is, to me, folks, a masterful job of leading a conversation that you're supposed to be following. So I'm finding this fascinating. So it's like if I hadn't prepared, I'm almost like, oh, all that time I prepared, I could have just followed the pages. But
Yeah, just
it's like, but the logic of, and then we're going to definitely go to impact because to
yeah,
me that's a beautiful segue.
yeah.
Want you to get credit for the fact that you were able to take, give me the, God, I'm not usually this dense. A book is a lost leader. And
Okay,
so,
well,
you're right. And so,
that's where I was going. So I knew going into it that,
right,
first of all, I couldn't put a tally on the sweat equity, right? Between the writing and
nobody
the
can,
editing and
right?
the rewriting and
Yeah.
then, gathering the recipes for my family, all that. And then the whole publishing process. I spent more than a year trying to get, a publisher
Right.
and tried to get sponsors and whatnot. And one of the publishers that turned me down, just real quick, a
Yeah.
year after it was published, he said, "How many copies did you sell in the first year?" I said, 10,000. He said, "That's impressive for a
It
first-time
is.
author." I said, "Well, I had a great formula. The
Mhm.
marketing mind went to work. I got sponsors with their buy-in. They got X amount of books. And the only deal was I like give these books away, sell them, just don't let them sit in your warehouse somewhere.
Mhm.
This is part of your buy-in. You're promoted in the book." They didn't have an ad in my book. I told their story. To be a sponsor of Gravy Wars, you had to have that Italian American story where dad or grandpa came over from on the
Um,
boat. Yep. And
I
so
love
it
that.
blended with the whole theme of the story, the immigration story, right, of the 1900s.
Yep.
And so I went into print with 4,000 books sold because of the
Right.
sponsorships.
Which is
I had a
incredible.
few noodles up there, yeah,
I think it's amazing that you'd
and
start
that
with
was,
4,000
but
books sold, you know?
but sold in terms of, and what their money did was
Right.
that helped me get this book printed. Now the publisher is Folger Ross Publications.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right, I'm gonna tell you a little secret. I'm Folger Ross Publications. And so it costs money, right? I figured out how to become a publisher after a year and a half. I had Philadelphia radio, fourth largest
Right.
market.
Right.
I had all this PR background. I
Hmm.
knew I was going to get press. I had a
Hmm.
marketing plan.
Hmm.
I was giving publishers everything. I still couldn't get anybody to look at me. Even a
Right.
small local publisher
Right.
didn't look at me until a year later when I sold 10,000 books. And I said, well, why do I need you now? What
God,
what are
what
you going to do that I haven't already done in this past year?
I
Um,
this is unbelievable.
so the sponsors helped me print a book, and the reason it
Right.
was a hardcover is
Mhm.
Cento, my biggest sponsor.
Yep.
It was a deal breaker. If
Hmm.
it's not a hardcover, we're not in. I said it's a hardcover. In the
Right.
meantime, I'm like, I'll figure out how to pay for it later because that's going to be expensive. And I
Home of
did.
the San Marzano tomatoes, I believe, if I'm not
The best
mistaken.
San Marzano tomatoes ever. I
Boom.
still say.
Yep.
Look, my sponsors were great. Licios, Toludos. I mean, they
Yep.
were just awesome. God bless them. Pat Steaks, and it was fun. And let me tell you, I was scared as anything to now I'm a salesperson, right? Now I'm selling this idea of a book.
Mhm.
And they went for it. And I was I'm still grateful. And like I said, 15 years later, I'm still pushing and still
You're still
pushing
in,
them, you know.
and you're still in, and I think
Mhm.
that's so
It's
fun.
fun.
What
So
pushed
La
you to try?
Familia.
Yeah.
So one of my clever ideas, even though I had, like I said, I had all this access to free press and did
Right.
events and I was invited to speaking engagements. I was at,
Yep.
the Italian American clubs and whatnot. I wanted to do more. And I thought, I got to bring this story of my family to life.
Yep.
So I started writing vignettes with the idea that they might be a pilot for a TV show. And I had a friend who was pitching Hollywood with a completely different story at the time. And I saw the rough go of it that she had. And I
Oh,
said, you know
sure.
what? I don't have the wherewithal or the ability to go flying around the country to pitch this. I have 4 kids at home.
Yeah.
So I said, let me turn it into like a stage show, a play. And I pitched some theaters and I'm still pitching theaters. So Colonial
Mm.
Playhouse, little community theater in Alden, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia.
Right.
They ran the first vignette. It
Mm.
was hysterical and not because of the writing was good, but the actors brought it to life. I could not have, and the director could not have asked for better. And then we did another one, and then we did the string of them in a special run in 2018. I'm not going to get into all the drama. There was drama around La Familia. I really thought I had the Maloics put on me because
Oh my God, right from the book.
the Maloics is the evil eye.
Uh-huh.
If you watch any Pacino film, you know it. But
Oh my God, the Maloics.
so
Um,
so I struggled with that. I thought, this is, I mean, serious tragedy. One of the actresses who was just fabulous in the lead, she lost her son.
mm,
Another another play producer, a director who was a family a family friend,
right.
and she ran a decent sized theater in South Jersey, and she was interested in looking at this, and her sister, who's also involved in theater, read it and she liked it. Well, the
Mm.
one who I'd wanted to produce it, she passed away of a heart attack unexpectedly in
Oh,
2018. Oh,
oh,
it was just one thing after another.
mm.
People dropping out because of this or that, and I'm like, you know what? I can't produce a play. That is not my wheelhouse. That is not
No.
my. I wrote this thing. I'm going to still pitch it, and oh, but it was sad. It was one thing after another,
Mhm.
and but the show is funny. I've had some I shouldn't say I've had success. Blue Moon Theater has had success. The
Yep.
little theater in Woodstown, New Jersey, in rural southern New Jersey, where all the blueberries are grown, and other farms. Cheryl Stark, who runs the theater there, she has run it in the last few years very successfully. And I'm just hoping to get get the play out to other venues. I'm still writing vignettes. So this is a series of one-act plays. The first La Familia that we put together is 4 acts. And it's just different peeks into this family. And it's loosely based, very loosely on my family.
Yep.
You take, so yeah,
But
it's
that
kind of
just
fun.
gives you content as it continues to go to morph in any direction.
The content is written for you. You just have to put it on paper. I mean, I literally
Right?
think of conversations, incidences that happen, and
Mhm.
boom, it's a play,
And it is. I love this. I got to tell you, you were kind enough to be heading me in the direction of impact. And it is probably the primary reason. I love the setup of this. You had shared something with me that I thought was really interesting. And I could, it was, there's a lot of things you feel. I could really feel this when you were talking to me about the sense of someone who, like, I'm calling it a second act. It might be a 50th act for someone. I'm only calling it a second act because the traditional part is you do something and then you retire and then they call it a second act. That's so false the way I described it. I feel like it is that as I'm learning anymore, especially in the entrepreneur world, or as you designed for me, somebody after the age of 50, you've gone through a series of acts, personally and professionally. You
I am
specifically,
constantly reinventing myself.
right? So
And
talk
yeah,
about that. What, like, we talked about resilience earlier. To me, one of the things that is really one of the most important things that you can offer. You were also talking about you get success by how much you give and all that sort of thing. And I think this is where it leads. So what gave you I mean, I know what the idea would be in regards to creating the book Impact, but what had you give you the wherewithal that, oh no, it's going to happen. I'm going to write it. It's going to go out. How did that work for you?
well, it's funny. After Gravy Wars, I thought I would do a sequel to Gravy Wars, but
Sure.
I just
Why
didn't have
not?
the
Right?
energy. I didn't have the energy for it. I had some great marketing plans, but
Mhm.
again, Gravy Wars was a loss leader. I didn't get rich off it.
Yep.
I probably didn't break even. I don't even want to try to tally the sweat equity.
Right.
Impact was completely different. I coached public speaking on the corporate level. I did a lot of corporate training. I taught as an adjunct
Mhm.
at Delaware County Community
Yep.
College for 7 years. I did a
Mhm.
couple of semesters at Newman University and one at Rosemont.
Mhm.
And one thing I noticed is there's very few really good books on public speaking textbooks. There's one that I love. Oh gosh, and I'm forgetting the name of it, so we'll just keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's hard to get kids to read textbooks,
Mhm.
okay?
Sure.
Look, and let's face it, it's public speaking. Do you really need to read a textbook? It's probably more important that you read your history textbook or your language arts or your
Mhm.
whatever, Shakespeare, if
Yep.
they still teach that, they should.
Mhm.
So I said, and same with my corporate clients.
Mhm.
I felt they needed a little leave behind. I printed out. I have a course that I developed called Speaking for Success.
Yeah.
So naturally,
Mhm.
there's a nice little booklet that goes along with that. But it's
Right.
something that I print out and have professionally printed, but not in a book form. But
Mhm.
at Kinko's, right?
Yep.
So are they still in business? It's been a
Oh my
while.
God. Well, now they're FedEx, and I think, they're FedEx office. So they morphed
Okay,
FedEx
okay,
Kinko's, and now it's FedEx office. So uh,
gotcha.
life with Kinko. So
I haven't I haven't
right?
done a corporate, I haven't done an in-person corporate since before COVID. So it's actually been more than four
Understood.
years now.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So I said, you know what? Nobody's reading the book. They need like a little pocketbook of
Mhm.
tips. So do you have
Yeah.
a copy of it there or should I unmute?
No, because
Oh,
I downloaded it on Kindle. So
you can see
I
it.
have the
Okay.
electronic. I have the version on my
But
phone.
just to show you, this is like a 5 by 7,
Yep.
really small. You
Yep.
literally could fold it and put it in your pocket. I wanted a pocketbook of tips
Hmm.
for my students.
Yeah.
And so I put this together. What I did was in 2017 for the year, I put a different public speaking tip online on Twitter every day of the year just to see what kind of traction it would get. And some people
Right.
liked it, some didn't. And then I collected them all and put them in a book. And
Mhm.
what I did was it's not just random tips. I categorize them the way I teach my program.
Mhm.
So we do the open, the close, the body,
Yep.
and there's a chapter on delivery. There's a chapter on body language,
Mhm.
all that stuff,
Right.
fear, nerves, that kind of thing, and then all the tips that go along with it. So it's just a simple book of tips, and I put it together with the intent to use, in my training.
Mhm.
I did want to promote it. I just never got around to it because life got in the way.
Sure.
And lo and behold, then COVID happened. Now the book is 2 years old, and I'm doing something I never thought I would do. I'm teaching public speaking online.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you something. When
Mhm.
I was approached, I guess it was around 2011
Mhm.
by Rosemont College. Can you
Right.
help us with an accelerated course?
Mhm.
They literally wanted a 3 credit course taught Friday night to Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's it's a little crazy, but I'll do it.
Mhm.
And so I did. It was a small group of professionals that just needed to get this course in.
Yeah.
So what they didn't get was weeks of practice every week and
Mhm.
getting up in front of the crowd, but we did it like I do a workshop for a company.
Right.
And when I was preparing that, the administration at Rosemont said, "Can you do this for online? Online seems to be where it's going."
Mhm.
And I sat there in this boardroom and I looked at them and I said, absolutely not. This is where I can't be taught. Okay, here's another
Why?
example.
Why? Absolutely not.
Because all I knew at the time was Skype. This was pre-Zoom.
Got it.
Skype was so darn unreliable.
Oh, oh, gross almost. Yeah.
It was like watching Ultraman, your
Uh,
mouth was moving, but the words weren't coming
right.
out. I'm
Oh my
dating
God. Go to
myself again.
webinar and all those. Yeah. 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 I
Awful.
got it. Right.
So that was one, but the bigger problem for me is part of the whole public speaking
Mhm.
experience is you've got to feel those nerves of being in front of a group of people in
The energy.
person.
The energy. Yeah.
What we're doing, there's no energy. Like you really have to work harder to get the energy. I mean, we
Yes.
have it because we're
We
both
have it
sociable, we're
before.
talking,
Right.
but it's hard to break through this barrier, this online barrier, and you won't for some people it could be a crutch. And
Mhm.
what happens when they actually, if I teach this online, what happens when they actually go before the Rotary Club or whatever, wherever they're
Mhm.
speaking,
Toastmasters, Rotary Club, whatever. Yeah.
or even their own boardroom at work,
Right.
and they have the VP of
Mhm.
whatever looking at them, and the CEO and the
Sure.
CFO, and
Mhm.
they haven't had that experience. So for that reason I said absolutely not. This should not be taught online. I'm against that. Blah blah
Right.
blah blah blah. Fast forward 9 years, what am I doing? I'm teaching
Right.
communication
I'm
skills
a person of my
online.
principles, and but here's why I love it and why I commend you. I do more of that, and that is not a self-serving plug to me, what or a yay for me.
Plug away,
Why?
plug away.
But why I say it is because if you could instill nothing like that weekend free credit thing, just get. I don't think people realize. I don't. And I think why what you're doing, why it's so damn important. You're positioning the book as like, oh, just a series of tips. But what you said right after is the part that got me, which is sequenced in very specific ways. I
Yeah.
think what is happening is people take that part so for granted.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big believer now that people are fixated on having content available, not
Mm-hmm.
communicating the content so
Mm-hmm.
that you are now the messenger, so to speak. And
Yeah.
and I'm using a pun on words because messaging is your whole deal. But it's like that you are now the messenger. I'll say it a second time. But the sense, the reminder to people, this is a skill. It's an absolute skill. You can sound loose and funny and engaging and feel energy and connect with people and still have structure and not come in sloppy and
Mm-hmm.
unprepared
Mm-hmm.
or reliant on, and I'm only using your book because it's got words in it. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, now we're going to read, but it's And so I feel like you're doing almost a public service because,
Oh, I appreciate that. Wow.
well,
Well,
that's the authentic part. Can you
you know,
process real information and say it in a way that's engaging and has a point and a beginning, a middle, and an end?
and an end, and that's where a
Boom.
lot of people, and we do a whole thing on listening. When I teach
Right.
this course, there's a lot of things we need to learn about listening,
Mhm.
and we need to do some self-assessment too. We need to this goes circle back to the whole communication thing.
Right.
We have to understand how we communicate so that we can understand how to best communicate in the audience's language. You know, and again, up until age 40, I thought I was a great communicator. I know how to get a message across. I'm going to do it this way. I wasn't thinking of the audience.
Right.
How's the audience receiving? The only audience I knew was a radio audience. That was simple, Don't worry about being repetitive because your audience changes every few
Mhm.
seconds. They're in their car alone most of the time listening to the radio because at that point we weren't sitting around the living room, you know, listening as a family,
No, we
right?
only listen apparently to radio 6 to 9 a.m. and 3 to 6 p.m. because that's when we allegedly all went home from work. But anyway, I
Yeah.
understand. See, this is where the way communication shifts. But
Hmm.
the importance, I think, is gets amplified if you really want success. If you really want to be heard.
It's like anything else. It takes practice. It takes sometimes help, some investigation, some learning, some digging deep. So I just want to, if I might,
Please.
and I appreciate that you found me through Impact, and
Yeah.
that was, that was the impetus for the call
Yep.
because, next to radio, teaching public speaking is my next big thing. I
And
I
our
I
buddy
love,
Ron Wagner.
and our buddy Ron
So as
Wagner, who
he's
was a
listening, Ron, you're a part of
panelist.
this too. But anyway, go ahead.
Um, when you talk about LinkedIn, we talked about reinventing
Right.
ourselves, careers after 50, what is the brand that you want to portray, and what message do you want to send across? So there's so many different levels of messaging and there's so many platforms now, right? So where do you go to get that message out? And how are you going to get it across? And is it going to resonate with everybody? You know what? And just like I say in Impact, you have to have you can't command 100% buy-in, but
Mhm.
you can command 100% respect, and that's important. And
Wow.
so always sell yourself first. They're not all going to buy your wares. Not everybody's going to buy, the item that you're selling, and that's
Right.
okay. It's not for everybody. That's why, thank goodness, there's billions of people in the world.
Mhm.
There's a huge pie, and there's a plenty of slices of it for everybody. I live in abundance. I don't believe in this, if this area is doing well, if that company's doing well, or if that person's doing well, that means somebody else isn't. Baloney. We can
Yep.
all do well. We can all do well. Um, that's my message.
It's a big one. And so if you are someone who is feeling as if, like, say, a classic cliche, some guy, well, let's say some guy who happens to be older than 50, and it's like they want to be heard, but they don't know exactly how to do that. In addition to contacting you, would there be any sort of things of like, I don't even know where to start? Like you say, my brand, what would you suggest somebody like? Would it be a question or two that they'd ask themselves? What are some of the things do you think
Hmm.
get somebody at least thinking along those lines?
I think the most important thing, and I'll take this back to some basic PR,
Yeah, please.
it's not about what you want from others, it's more about what you can do for others. So if you're thinking, if you want to get noticed, if you want to,
Right.
if I think that was your question, if
Yeah.
somebody they're trying to figure out how do they get themselves out
Mhm.
there, how do they hang their
That.
shingle? I think it's about, well, somebody once told me, a very successful businessman, a guy I grew up with who is now retired, and God bless him, he sold his business for millions.
Mhm.
Years ago, he said something, you know what? I don't have it around. I used to keep the post-it note. I remember being on the phone with him, and I'm literally going back 20 years or more.
Yeah, great.
And I said, Jerry, how do you do it? He said, partner and repeat sales. And I wrote that down, partner and repeat sales. So
Wow.
back to the whole PR thing.
Hmm.
Um, Everything is relationship building,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
we talked about authenticity, and it's a huge part of what you do with your podcast, which is
Thank you.
just phenomenal. And you know what? We're smart people. People know when you're inauthentic. People
Yeah.
know when you're a phony. Don't even.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're uncomfortable being anything but because you don't know how to be. And that's okay. Just fake it till you make it. Get there, just engage with people wherever they are in life. It's the old field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. I firmly believe that. So back to the whole PR thing, partner
Yeah.
with the right people.
Mhm.
I'm going to throw out a bunch of cliches, and guess what? I kind of like some of the cliches and
Great.
sayings. If you want to be an eagle, you got to soar with the eagle. You're the average of the 5 people with whom you associate most. Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your time on social media? What are you doing, for networking? Who are you helping? What are you involved in? All of those people, and I tell students and I haven't been in the classroom in a long time, but I would always tell young people, you know, every person with whom you interact is a potential, they're in your network. That's a
Right.
potential business networking
Mhm.
person. And I think as adults, we generally know this. So people are saying, oh, come on, she's not saying anything I haven't thought of or heard. Okay. But have you thought of it recently? Have you really sat down with a pen and paper and written down who's in my network? How can I help them? And here's the authenticity, not helping with the intention of getting something back,
Right.
but just with the intention of giving. And this may sound cliche, the whole pay it forward thing, but go back to the field of dreams. If you want to get known, if you want to get out there, involve yourself. We are, as human beings, just had this conversation with my husband. And by the way, I mentioned being a single mom, so it's obviously husband number two. But
Okay.
just had this conversation
I don't
recently.
count. I just love it.
I said, uh, oh gosh, now I forget where it's going. I just totally drew a blank.
No, but from what you shared with me, certainly got enough pieces. And
I'm
the thing
sorry.
was, don't be sorry. I was like, what I was listening to, if I heard you correctly, where it's in terms of who you were associating with, how are you helping, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
What I wanted to follow up with, you said they sometimes seem cliched. But here's what I wanted to just remind people, which is why it matters, why these alleged, they're not cliches to me, they matter. One of the reasons they do, as you were repeating them, was simply this. On your best day, you may know all this stuff. You may know all of that. Oh, yeah, no, I know. On your best day. But there's so many days that may not be your best day. And
Mhm.
so if you're feeling pressure or feeling defeated or whatever it is, why it's important for you to remind people of these things and to hear it from your voice is because so often we're not in our best day or our best mood, or it might be a pressure situation. And like, oh,
Mhm.
right, right. Because it's in those moments that so much can shift. And if you could just pull one of them out,
Yes.
you know, then
Yeah.
just bring a
And
conversation back.
it's so true. And I fail every day.
Who
So I
doesn't?
can tell you that. Who
Right?
doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to humanity.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, like you said, on your best day, you might know this stuff
Yeah,
at the
maybe.
fore,
Right. Hmm.
but on the other days, I think it was I think it was also Zig Ziglar who said,
Yeah.
motivation is like bathing. It wears off. That's why we do it every
Us.
day.
You just
We
do it
need
every
it
day.
every day.
See
And
it.
so I have these sayings and these cliches written on post-it notes all over. I constantly have to remind myself. And some days I get so down, or you let people beat you up, and things
Yeah.
things
Oh,
things
me
are
too.
said that, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm the worst. I'm no good. This is crazy. I have no business being me. And then you have to really dig deep and pull out that self
Yeah.
motivation,
Mhm.
or listen to something, or watch a video, or your go-to read. I go to Tony Robbins. I like Zig
And by the way,
Ziglar,
I'm a
obviously.
Robbins fan and a Mel Robbins fan. And I'm a massive Mel Robbins fan in addition to like the Robbins crew. I know they're
How
not
about
related,
that?
but I was going to say, like I said again, I'm a Tony Robbins fan. I'm a Mel Robbins fan. I'm a Lewis Howes fan. I'm
Uh,
a Brenda Burchard fan. It's like, but really what it is, folks, it's this reminder that it's like we're all trying to, like I said, keep progressing. It's
Yeah.
really hard when you're not. I've done it when I just feel like sometimes I just feel like giving up, or this feels hard. Or you talked about 15 years with a book that
Yeah.
that longevity. That's why the cliches matter. That's why the
Yeah.
structure matters. Because again, if you're speaking in front of one person, if you're speaking in front of a Zoom lens, it's these things that you want to be heard, you want to be respected, you just mainly want to be understood, you want to get the results. So, Lorraine, I feel to me it's a really powerful way to go. Two more questions. And the first one, you already started to identify what come on, John, say the word. What authenticity means to you. What's it mean to be authentic?
Being your best self. Well, not just being yourself, it's not
Mhm.
always going to be your best self, but also recognizing and having a level of self-awareness.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
I think that gets lost. You hear the term EQ. Everybody's into emotional quotient
Sure.
or emotional intelligence. And you know, I find that people are very quick. I found this in corporate over the past
Yeah.
10, 15 years.
Mhm.
People are very quick to say, oh, well, they're not emotionally intelligent. You know what? That is as loose a metric as any ever. And I'm just not I don't know. I just feel like it's overused and and misunderstood, because I think real intelligence comes with understanding who you are and how you appear. And just because you don't lose your cool doesn't mean that you're not driving other people crazy,
Oh, right,
so
right.
yeah, so there's a lot to be this whole interpersonal communication, how we relate to one another,
Mm.
it's tough. So authenticity is just being yourself, being having integrity. I'm huge on integrity.
Mhm.
um, and being able to laugh at yourself,
Mhm.
be not taking everything so seriously, and then having empathy too. I think that all boils into authenticity, being empathetic,
I love it. So
because
one
we're all
question.
trying. We're all trying.
It's just all trying, right?
Yeah.
And the purpose is to keep trying. Last question I'd ask is, you've got an extensive family, but I'm keeping it to your immediate family just to keep it an easier question, so to speak. Yes, with your immediate family, kids, husband, whatever, who would you like? What would you wish for them in regards to their ability to communicate, to be authentic in a world like right now? What would you wish for them?
Oh, wow. Well, I think so. I go right away to my kids,
Yeah,
and they're good. They're so much more mature than I am or was at their age.
right.
And I said I was out with my youngest and a friend of his recently, and we commented on my son and how mature he is. And he said, and his friend said, well, that's good parenting. I said, no, that's good watching what you don't want to be as a parent.
Lorraine, would
But
you mind if I ask the your youngest is how old now?
my youngest is going to be 26.
Great. So I've got a nephew that's approximately that age, right? So
Yeah.
envision. Say that for me one more time so we get it, not the age, but I've got to say the part before. Give me the line
So,
again.
so,
I love it.
so the line basically was, I was complimented on raising a mature
Yeah,
son, and I
right.
said, I said, no, I didn't raise a mature son. I raised a son who was smart enough to view the world around him and see what he didn't want to be, like see what he didn't want to be as an adult in me. You know what I mean? So, the self-deprecation never ends, and I have a friend who says you got to stop doing that to yourself. But
I love the laugh and I love the smile, and I think it's great. I think, as I said again, you keep teaching, you keep instructing, you keep communicating.
But
Lorraine,
what I would want for my kids and for my family and for
tell me.
everybody really is to have the temerity
Mhm.
to hold your ground, to speak,
Mhm.
honestly and openly, and also to be able to accept criticism and not knock it down, and not be intimidated, not to be silenced,
Mhm.
or intimidated into silence. And I think we see a lot of that in society today, and that's a shame.
Mhm.
We're self-silencing and canceling
Mhm.
all the time, and I think that's ridiculous. But
It is. So maybe a little bit more bravery. Well,
yeah,
and I mean, and that sounds like I'm putting the pressure on them. I'm not. It's just hopefully
I think the pressure is on all of us to be open to receiving,
that's all. That's
Yeah,
all.
when we were kids, the saying was simple: sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will
Right.
never hurt me. And now
Right.
all of a sudden, oh, words are
No, the words
dangerous.
really hurt.
No, no, what hurts is how you decide to let things hurt you.
Right.
You can choose to be happy. It's a line from Say Anything,
I love that, by the way.
yeah,
I love that. Choose to be happy.
choose it.
Right, at least today or for your next encounter. Lorraine Ranalli, I have had a blast so
It has
far.
been my pleasure,
And
John.
it's just been awesome. You make me terribly happy. So, folks, you will see on there. So we'll make it easy for you. Like I said, LinkedIn, or do we put the website up right now?
Yeah, LorraineRanalli.com. It's up. It's up.
Beautiful. And then you got access to the books, access to the courses. Again, a gifted professional that keeps giving back. Lorraine Ranalli, thank you so much for showing up for me today. I really
John, thank you so much. I love your podcast. I love what you're doing. It's been a pleasure.
so kind. That's wonderful. And folks, this heard another edition of Your Message Received. Keep listening, liking, sharing, watching. We'll keep driving content through your front door. And folks, this is John Duffin here with DuffinMedia. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and thanks so much for tuning in, and we will talk soon. Be well. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of DuffinMedia.